James, the dockmaster Riley, and Maria La Serpiente Santos weren't just names whispered in Liverpool's darkest corners. They were the masterminds behind a cocaine empire that stretched from the city's gritty docks all the way to the secret ports of Spain and the jungles of South America. Their network moved millions in drugs, money, and blood, operating in silence while the world remained unaware. This is the untold story of how they built a global smuggling pipeline and how law enforcement's fiercest crackdown threatened to bring it all crashing down. Liverpool was a city known for its busy docks, lively football culture, and rich history. But beneath the surface of this vibrant city, a shadowy world was quietly taking shape. In the early 2000s, something new was emerging, a criminal empire that was far more dangerous and far-reaching than anything the city had seen before. It started small with petty smugglers moving goods under the radar, but soon the trade shifted to something far more valuable and deadly: cocaine. The docks of Merseyside had long been the heart of Liverpool's economy, bustling with activity day and night. Ships arrived from all over the world, unloading containers filled with everything from bananas to cars. But some of these containers were hiding something illegal. Drug traffickers began exploiting the dock's complexity, slipping cocaine into shipments to move it across borders without detection. The city's deep knowledge of shipping routes, combined with a network of insiders, allowed the traffickers to operate with surprising efficiency. At first, these criminal groups operated quietly, keeping a low profile and avoiding conflict. But as their business grew, so did their ambition. They wanted more control, more territory, and more profit. What started as small smuggling operations evolved into a well-organized mafia that stretched its influence far beyond Liverpool. These drug lords were no longer just local criminals. They were part of a global network, coordinating shipments and contacts across continents. The cocaine pipeline they built was worth millions, feeding the demand for drugs not just in the UK but across Europe. This was a new kind of crime that used technology, money, and power to stay one step ahead of the law. The city's once proud docks became a hub for this illegal trade, with the mafia's reach spreading into communities and neighborhoods. At its core was a ruthless desire to dominate the market and eliminate anyone who stood in the way. As the Liverpool Mafia quietly expanded their operation, they were unaware that law enforcement agencies were beginning to piece together the clues. What started as isolated arrests would soon grow into a massive investigation that threatened to bring the entire network crashing down. The story of blood, boats, and blow was only just beginning. The docks of Merseyside had always been a place of hard work and constant movement, where ships loaded and unloaded goods from all over the world. But by the early 2000s, these docks had become much more than just a center of trade. They had turned into the beating heart of a vast criminal operation. Drug traffickers learned to use the dock's size and complexity to their advantage, hiding cocaine inside everyday shipments that seemed completely ordinary. Containers filled with fruit, electronics, and even vehicles were carefully chosen as cover for the drugs. The sheer volume of cargo passing through the port made it nearly impossible for authorities to check everything thoroughly. This chaos created the perfect environment for smuggling. The traffickers had insiders, workers at the docks who were either paid off or threatened, helping them bypass security checks and move shipments unnoticed. These insiders knew exactly which containers to watch and when to act, giving the mafia a crucial edge. The docks also offered numerous entry points, from large container terminals to smaller, less obvious piers. This variety allowed smugglers to change their methods quickly if one route became too risky. They used sophisticated tricks to hide the cocaine, like hiding it inside hollowed-out crates or concealing it within legitimate cargo. Each shipment was carefully planned to avoid detection, and the dock's labyrinthine layout helped keep their activities secret. What made the operation even more dangerous was the combination of old-fashioned muscle and modern technology. While the docks relied on manual labor and heavy machinery, the traffickers used encrypted phones and secret networks to coordinate shipments. They timed everything perfectly, ensuring containers were picked up and moved before police or customs could intervene. This system was ruthless and efficient. The cocaine that entered through Liverpool's docks was quickly moved onward, destined for other parts of the UK and Europe. What began as a hidden operation within the docks soon became a well-oiled machine, capable of moving huge quantities of drugs without raising alarms. Behind the scenes, the Mafia's grip on the docks grew stronger, their power rooted in secrecy, fear, and the ability to outsmart the law at every turn. The docks of Merseyside were no longer just a place of trade, they had become a gateway to a dangerous and far-reaching drug empire. Once the cocaine shipments left Liverpool, they rarely stayed long within the UK. Instead, they moved swiftly to Spain, where secretive ports along the sun-soaked coastlines became crucial hubs in the Liverpool Mafia's vast network. These coastal towns, often bustling tourist destinations by day, transformed into shadowy gateways for drug trafficking after dark. Their location made them perfect for smuggling, close enough to Europe's major markets, but far enough to avoid constant police scrutiny. The Spanish ports were smaller and less regulated than the massive docks of Liverpool, which made them ideal for offloading cocaine quickly and quietly. The Mafia used a mix of speedboats, fishing vessels, and even private yachts to transport drugs from the large cargo ships anchored offshore. These smaller boats could slip into hidden coves and remote marinas, avoiding the eyes of law enforcement and customs officials. From here, the cocaine was broken down into smaller shipments, making it easier to distribute across Spain and into other parts of Europe. Behind the scenes, a network of local criminals, corrupt officials, and business owners helped facilitate the operation. Some legitimate companies unknowingly became fronts for laundering the enormous profits generated by the drug trade. Others were active participants, using their resources to hide shipments in plain sight or provide safe storage for the cocaine before it was moved on. This web of complicity made it incredibly difficult for authorities to trace the drugs back to Liverpool or South America. The coastal towns also served as meeting points for negotiations and planning. The Liverpool Mafia didn't operate alone. They formed uneasy alliances with Spanish crime groups who controlled these ports. These relationships were fragile, built on mutual benefit but threatened by mistrust and betrayal. Yet the Mafia's reputation for violence and efficiency ensured they were respected and feared partners. As the cocaine made its way from these secretive Spanish ports into cities across Europe, the operation's scale became clear. The pipeline was no longer just a local smuggling route. It was a global enterprise. The docks of Liverpool were just the beginning. Spain's quiet shores were a vital link in the chain that connected South American cartels to Europe's drug markets. The Mafia's reach was expanding, and their influence was growing stronger with every shipment that crossed the sea. The story of Liverpool's cocaine pipeline wouldn't be complete without looking far beyond Europe to the jungles and Andes of South America, where the drug itself was born. Deep in countries like Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, vast cocaine plantations stretched across remote areas, hidden from the eyes of governments and police. These regions were controlled by powerful cartels that managed every stage of production, from growing coca plants to refining them into pure cocaine. While these cartels ruled their territories with brutal force, they relied heavily on international partners to move their product to distant markets. The Liverpool Mafia was one of those key partners. They didn't produce the cocaine, but they provided a crucial link in getting it out of South America and into Europe. This relationship was built on mutual need. The cartels wanted reliable buyers and distributors, while Liverpool's drug lords needed access to the raw product. But this partnership was never easy. It was built on a fragile balance of trust and fear, where betrayal could mean death. Cocaine was typically smuggled from South America to Europe by sea, using huge cargo ships that carried legal goods alongside hidden drug shipments. These ships made stops at secret ports along the Spanish coast, carefully chosen for their low security and limited law enforcement presence. The journey was long and dangerous, with risks from rival gangs, law enforcement, and the unpredictable ocean, but the financial rewards were enormous, making the risk worth it for those involved. Inside South America, the Mafia's influence was limited, but their financial power allowed them to bribe officials and hire armed guards to protect shipments and personnel. The violence surrounding cocaine production was notorious, with rival cartels fighting bloody battles to control territories. Though the Liverpool Mafia was far away, they were not immune to this violence. Orders for shipments settlements came with threats, and failure to deliver could bring deadly consequences. This transatlantic pipeline was more than just a business. It was a dangerous game of survival and power. The cocaine that began as a crop in South America ended up fueling addiction and crime in Europe, with Liverpool's docks as the final major gateway. This global connection made the Liverpool Mafia part of a worldwide network of crime, where borders meant little, but trust was everything. To keep their operations hidden from the police, the Liverpool Mafia relied on cutting-edge technology, especially encrypted communication networks. One of the most important tools they used was EncroChat, a secret messaging system designed to protect users from being monitored. This technology allowed the traffickers to communicate in real time, without fear that law enforcement could listen in or track their movements. EncroChat devices looked like ordinary phones, but were heavily modified with encryption software that scrambled messages, making them unreadable to outsiders. Using EncroChat, the Mafia could coordinate shipments, plan routes, and organize meetings with incredible efficiency. Messages were sent and deleted almost instantly, leaving no trace behind. This secure line of communication gave the Liverpool drug lords a huge advantage, allowing them to stay one step ahead of the police for years. The encrypted phones connected not only local members but also contacts in Spain, South America, and other parts of Europe, creating a global web of communication that was almost impossible to break. However, what the traffickers didn't know was that law enforcement agencies in Europe had been secretly working to crack EncroChat. After months of undercover operations and collaboration between different countries, police managed to infiltrate the system. This breakthrough gave authorities access to millions of messages, exposing the inner workings of the Liverpool Mafia and their partners abroad. The information gathered through EncroChat was shocking. It revealed how meticulously the Mafia planned every step of their drug pipeline, from arranging secret shipments in Liverpool's docks to negotiating deals in Spain and coordinating payments in South America. It also exposed the names of key players, routes used, and even the violent enforcement methods the group employed to protect their interests. This massive intelligence haul was a game-changer for law enforcement. Suddenly, what had been a shadowy, nearly invisible criminal network was laid bare. But the police knew the operation to bring down the Liverpool Mafia would be dangerous and complex. They had the evidence, but now came the challenge of turning that intelligence into arrests and seizures without tipping off the criminals. EncroChat had given the police the key to unlock the Mafia's secrets, and the clock was ticking. With the breakthrough in cracking EncroChat, law enforcement agencies across Europe saw a rare opportunity to strike a decisive blow against the Liverpool Mafia. This led to the launch of Operation Venetic, a massive and carefully coordinated effort involving police forces from the UK, Spain, the Netherlands, and other countries. The operation was designed to dismantle the entire cocaine smuggling network, from the docks of Merseyside to secret ports in Spain and the distant jungles of South America. Operation Venetic was unlike any previous crackdown. Months of surveillance, intelligence gathering, and planning culminated in simultaneous raids across multiple cities. Police stormed warehouses, shipping yards, private homes, and even luxury villas used by the drug lords. The scale of the operation was staggering, involving hundreds of officers, helicopters, and specialized units trained for high-risk arrests. The goal was to catch the criminals off guard, preventing them from destroying evidence or fleeing before the net closed. What made Operation Venetic especially powerful was the wealth of information extracted from EncroChat messages. Police knew the locations of hidden cocaine caches, the timing of shipments, and the identities of the Mafia's key leaders. They were able to seize millions of pounds worth of drugs, cash, and luxury assets, striking at the financial core of the operation. But more importantly, they arrested some of the most dangerous and elusive figures within the Liverpool Mafia, men who had operated in the shadows for years. The raids uncovered a criminal network far more complex than expected. Police found encrypted phones, weapons, forged documents, detailed plans showing how the Mafia coordinated with partners in Spain and South America. They also discovered the use of coded language and secret routes designed to evade detection. Every piece of evidence pointed to a ruthless organization willing to use violence and corruption to protect its empire. Operation Venetic was a turning point. For the first time, the Liverpool Mafia faced a threat that could truly dismantle its global cocaine pipeline. But even with the arrests and seizures, law enforcement knew the fight was far from over. The Mafia's reach ran deep, and new leaders were ready to step in. Still, this operation sent a clear message: no criminal network, no matter how powerful, was untouchable. As the dust settled after Operation Venetic's massive raids, the Liverpool Mafia's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. The arrests had struck deep, but the real damage came when some of those caught behind bars decided to turn against their old comrades. Faced with long prison sentences, several key players chose to cooperate with authorities, providing inside information that further exposed the organization's secrets. This betrayal sent shockwaves through the criminal network, unraveling connections that had remained hidden for years. The police discovered secret bank accounts scattered across multiple countries, where millions of pounds were stashed away. These funds had been laundered through shell companies, nightclubs and property investments. Tracking the money trail revealed how the Mafia had embedded itself within legitimate businesses, making it harder to distinguish between legal and illegal activities. Authorities seized luxury cars, yachts and expensive homes, symbols of the wealth the drug trade had generated. Investigators also uncovered a series of tunnels and hidden compartments beneath warehouses near the docks. These secret spaces had been used to store cocaine shipments before they were distributed further inland. The tunnels showed just how sophisticated and well-planned the Mafia's smuggling operations were. It wasn't just about brute force or street deals. It was a highly organized enterprise with layers of security and secrecy. Despite the arrests, the Mafia's influence hadn't vanished entirely. Rival factions began vying for control, leading to an increase in violence on the streets of Liverpool. Turf wars erupted, and the city's docks, once a symbol of trade and prosperity, became a battleground. Innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire, fueling public fear and putting pressure on the police to act quickly. The betrayal within the ranks exposed how fragile criminal loyalties could be when the stakes were high. It also showed the immense power of intelligence and patience in dismantling such a complex network. The Liverpool Mafia was no longer the untouchable force it once was, but the story was far from over. The remaining members were desperate and dangerous, willing to fight for survival in a world where trust was scarce and betrayal was a matter of life and death. The fall of the Liverpool Mafia didn't bring peace. Instead, it unleashed a wave of violence that rippled through the city's streets and docks. As law enforcement dismantled the old guard, rival factions scrambled to seize power, leading to brutal clashes that shocked communities already wary of the drug trade's impact. The cocaine empire's collapse left a dangerous vacuum, and those desperate to claim what was left turned to violent means to secure their share. Murders, shootings, and assaults became more frequent. These violent acts weren't just warnings, they were ruthless attempts to intimidate rivals and control key territories, especially around the docks where the cocaine pipeline had once thrived. The docks, once a symbol of Liverpool's economic strength, became a battleground soaked in blood. Innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire were left traumatized, and the city's sense of safety was shattered. This period revealed the true cost of the drug trade, beyond money and drugs, human lives. Families living near the docks lived in fear as violence escalated, and local businesses suffered from the instability. The Mafia's enforcers didn't hesitate to use extreme violence to protect their interests, showing how deeply criminal control had rooted itself in the area. The threat extended beyond rival gangs to anyone who might get in the way. Witnesses, informants, or even random victims. Despite the chaos, police intensified their efforts to restore order. They increased patrols, launched targeted operations, and worked closely with communities to gather intelligence. Yet the battle was difficult, as the fractured gangs were unpredictable and more willing to take risks. The dock's complex layout, with hidden corners and abandoned warehouses, provided ideal hiding spots and escape routes, making law enforcement's job even harder. The bloodshed was a harsh reminder that the war on drugs was far from over. It highlighted how dismantling a criminal empire often leads to short-term instability before lasting peace can be achieved. For Liverpool, the docks remained a place where past violence and future threats loomed, a stark symbol of the price paid when crime and power collide. The city was left to pick up the pieces, knowing the struggle for control and survival was ongoing. The arrests and seizures from Operation Venetic dealt a heavy blow to the Liverpool Mafia. But the end of one empire rarely means the end of the problem. As key figures were taken off the streets, new groups emerged, eager to fill the void left behind. These newcomers were often younger, more ruthless, and sometimes more secretive, learning from the mistakes of their predecessors. The drug trade didn't disappear, it simply shifted, adapting to new challenges and finding new routes. The disruption caused by the crackdown forced traffickers to change how they operated. Some moved shipments through different ports or countries, while others used new technologies to communicate and hide their activities. Law enforcement had made progress, but the mafia's ability to evolve meant the fight was far from over. The constant cat-and-mouse game between criminals and police became a defining feature of Liverpool's ongoing battle with drug trafficking. Beyond the gangs and the drugs, the real impact was felt in the community. Families torn apart by addiction struggled to rebuild their lives, and neighborhoods once plagued by violence faced an uncertain future. The drugs that flowed through the city fed not just crime but also deep social problems: poverty, broken homes, and lost opportunities. Efforts to support recovery and prevention became as important as arrests and seizures, highlighting the human cost of the cocaine pipeline. Meanwhile, authorities continued to work internationally, sharing intelligence and coordinating operations to prevent the mafia from re-establishing itself. The global nature of the trade meant that no single country could tackle the problem alone. Collaboration was essential, but it also faced challenges due to differences in laws, priorities, and resources across borders. Liverpool's docks, once the heart of the cocaine route, remained under close watch. Security measures were improved, and community programs aimed to reclaim the area's reputation. The story of the Liverpool Mafia became a cautionary tale, a reminder that behind every large-scale criminal operation are countless lives affected and a community left to heal. The legacy of the pipeline is a complex mix of loss, resilience, and an ongoing struggle to stop the cycle of crime. Today, the story of Liverpool's cocaine pipeline serves as a powerful reminder of how global crime can thrive in the shadows of everyday life. The docks, once a bustling symbol of trade and industry, became the starting point for a dangerous journey that connected continents and fueled addiction across Europe. The Liverpool Mafia's rise and fall showed how criminal networks can exploit ports, technology, corruption, to build vast empires hidden in plain sight. The legacy of this pipeline is complex. On one hand, it exposed the scale and sophistication of modern drug trafficking, involving not just local criminals but international cartels and corrupt officials. It revealed how quickly and easily drugs could move through the world's busiest ports when organized crime has the resources and knowledge to manipulate systems. The story also highlighted the importance of technology, both as a tool for criminals and a weapon for law enforcement. The encryption systems once